Hey there, my name's Curtis Lucas and you're watching Empire Building. Yeah, I know I've been away a while and yeah, I know I'm wearing a headset. I've been working on some new recording techniques, working on some different programs. So for the time being, I'm going to be using this. I know it's not what you're used to seeing if you've been following this channel, but this is what we've got to work with for now. But I wanted to get on here to talk about what's going on because I've been sensing a disturbance in the force.
I felt a great disturbance in the force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror.
I think I can kind of tell when there's a lot of anxiety out there because honestly, I feel it too. But it's certainly nothing out of the ordinary. I know that it feels like there's good news that keeps coming out and it just doesn't seem to push the price up any further. In fact, every time we rise up, it just sells off again. And this is a very strange phenomenon, but it's not something you should get overly worked up about. Yes, I know the stocks are going down. In fact, they tend to go down even while Bitcoin is going up. Yes, they've done this before as well. The only way you're going to get through this is to have a long-term outlook. I mean, yeah, it'd be great if these stocks just continually went up with only minor fluctuations in a straight and steady march to new all-time highs. Well, that's not how it works with Bitcoin, and that certainly isn't how it works with stocks. So what I'm going to do in this video is search for some perspective. It does help to look to the past to find answers and some perspective in these types of situations. They're not going to be able to tell you exactly what's going to happen next, but there is value in that perspective. But first, Empire Building is pleased to be able to offer viewers of this channel sign-up bonuses for opening a brand new account with Webull. Just click the link in the description below and start the process to open your account with Webull, and you'll receive 2 free stocks. One valued at up to $250 for opening your account, and the second valued at up to $1,600 after you fund your account with $100 or more. You'll also enjoy commission-free trading, pre- and post-market hours trading, and free contract fee and zero-cost options trading. In addition, when applicants transfer from other brokerages to Webull, applicants will be able to get a transfer reimbursement of up to $100. And with that, let's get back to the video. Some of the other things that I would recommend is not to spend so much time looking at these things. The reality is investing is supposed to be where you let your money work for you so you don't have to work so hard. Or you could spend your time working on something else, some other way, some other method of earning more income, of building your empire. That's what I have been doing. Part of my empire is this channel. So what I've been doing over the last week or so, since I haven't been actually making videos, is trying to work on ways to improve the quality of those videos so that I can improve the experience for all of you. And I also want to expand this community. So one of the things that I'm finally ready to announce is Empire Building on Patreon. I've somewhat struggled with the idea of doing this simply because I didn't know how I felt about asking for people to pay money for additional content. But I also realized there's some incredible value in that as well. And there are things that I could do that just quite aren't possible with the channel alone. So if you are interested in supporting the channel, head over to Patreon. The link is down in the description. And I'm going to be continuing to work on expanding the content on Patreon. And my goal is to allow that community to become more like a think tank. We can share ideas, due diligence through Discord, which is available on all tiers. But there'll also be added perks like early access to videos. And soon enough, you'll be able to participate in live streams. And for some of the higher Patreon levels, there'll even be exclusive Patreon merchandise. But that's enough talking about that. Let's get on to the content in this video. You see, when you zoom out on the chart of Bitcoin, what you immediately see is that we've come a very long way. I mean, you don't even have to look very long at this to realize we've had a hell of a run. And I honestly believe we are not done yet. I know for some people this actually might look scary. And maybe in the short term, it might be. But the fact of the matter is we've seen incredible growth. And if you've been paying attention at all to what's actually happening in this space, it's pretty clear we're nowhere near done here. But for that perspective, let's go look at the past. If we move back and focus on the way things looked the last time something like this happened. During the last bull run, when it looked a whole lot like it does today, we can see that the price often retraced back down to this green line and touched it. Bounced off, came back, touched it again, bounced off, touched it again. And this continued multiple times before we reached the peak of $20,000. Multiple times coming back and retouching this green line. This green line is the 21 weekly moving average. This is simply the average price for the previous 21 weeks at any given time. So you can essentially look at this like a magnet that pulls the price back to it when it gets a little too far away. And this is extremely healthy in a bull market. But as has been said many times this time round, it's different this time. Perhaps because we have a whole lot more institutional investors. But we haven't come back and retested this line really at all. The last time we touched the 21 weekly moving average was September 21st of 2020. That's a long time to go without ever retracing back to that average. The entire run since then, which has been nearly 6 months, half a year since we've come back and touched that line. The price of Bitcoin, the last time it tested that line, was actually around $10,000. That's remarkable. We've gone from 10,000 all the way to 60,000 without retracing back to that line. And currently that line sits at about $38,000. Now, does that mean we're actually going to drop all the way back down to $38,000? No, not at all. What it means is at some point, we probably will come back and retest that line. But that line, by the time we reach it, could be 40,000, 44,000, 48,000. We don't really know. But that could mean sideways price action for some period of time. But on the other hand, things are different this time. Just because we had pulled back multiple times to retest that line through the last bull run doesn't mean that that's what we're going to do this time. And trying to predict that kind of behavior would have left you way behind long before we ever reached these price points. To get a little bit more clarity, let's look at the daily chart. Now, the daily chart, zoom out a little bit here, we can see we've been following this trend line for quite some time, and until just recently, we've actually finally broken through it. Now, that's not necessarily cause for alarm. Trend lines are broken all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're just going to fall back down again. But it is something to take notice of. There are many ways that people will use charts, and you could find answers to just about anything you want to see at any point along the way. You can confirm your own bias 50 different ways. So you have to be careful with that. As far as general price action, there's nothing really all that scary about this. But one of the things that often people will turn to is what's called Fibonacci retracements. And just about any charting software will have these tools. So Fibonacci retracements work like this. Starting from a former low, you can stretch this up to an existing high. I'll extend this out a little bit further. And this, when you look at it, can give you some useful information. Basically, this is calculating 100% move from the former low to the to the local high, and then the retracement follows these additional lines. And in this case, we pulled back to the 50% retracement line. This is a common and normal, healthy retracement for rapidly growing markets. But the one that usually gets people really excited is the 61.8% retracement, which is known as the golden ratio. Interestingly enough, we didn't reach that level during this individual pullback, but we can do this again and see what happened the next time. We bottomed out and traced up to the top, and yet again, the pullback just below the 50% again did not reach the golden ratio. So where are we now? Well, let's do it again. From the bottom to the top, extend it over. Yet again, we're at the 50% retracement. Remarkable. 3 times in a row. So that's not to say we'll stop here. We may very well, maybe we will make it down to the 61.8% retracement, or the golden ratio. If you're wondering what's so important about this golden ratio, why do people get so excited about it? Many of you probably already know it's basically a mathematical ratio that shows up a lot in nature. But me personally, I do think it's given a lot more credit than it's due. But it is something that a lot of people pay attention to, so it can become a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Essentially, all it is a special rectangle, where that rectangle could be made up of a square and another rectangle. The length of the sides of the square are equal to A, and the short length of the second rectangle is equal to B, and thereby the other side is also equal to A. The interesting trick here is that the ratio of the large rectangle and the small rectangle are actually equal. In other words, the ratio between A and A plus B is equal to the ratio of A and B. I know that sounds strange, and when you think about it like that, that seems completely and utterly irrelevant to anything. But you find if you start actually expanding on these shapes and then drawing intersecting lines from all the points of intersection, you get some very interesting patterns that start to emerge. And you start to realize it shows up all over the place in nature. And the further down that rabbit hole you start to go, all kinds of interesting and fascinating patterns begin to emerge, and you realize it's almost everywhere. So the thinking is, if this pattern can show up so often in nature, then in systems that are supposed to be chaotic, perhaps it can bring reason and a certain level of predictability to chaotic systems like the stock market. I mean, why not? It's driven by human beings. But of course, the problem is it works until it doesn't. But like I said, so many people are looking at that, it does tend to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So as it stands right now, the golden ratio sits at just about $50,000. So who knows? Maybe this time we bottom out there. Maybe we've already bottomed out. The last 3 times, 50% was all it took. Or maybe this time we go back all the way and retest the 21 weekly moving average. I do think at some point in this bull run that will happen. But frankly, I am not interested in trying to predict that. But having said that, I do recognize that this is probably the worst time to go making large risky bets. So as far as call options are concerned, I'm putting those aside. I still have one set of 50 contracts expiring on June 18th. They've got plenty of time. Strike price of $45 in Mara. But other than that, I see no interest in taking on any additional risk at this point. What I am doing is continuing to cost average. Since I was able to start offering sign-up bonuses with Webull, a lot of the Canadian viewers have been asking whether or not here in Canada we can sign up for Webull, and no, we can't. However, we do now have the option and the opportunity to sign up with Wealthsimple. So I myself did. I signed up using a link that I received so that I received $10 as soon as I funded my account with $100 or more. And so now I'm able to offer the same deal to all the Canadians watching now. And so what I'm doing now with the money that I still do have sitting along the sidelines is cost averaging. For me, this account, I'm going to be focusing in on only the Canadian Bitcoin mining stocks. I already have plenty of bit farms, so I'm looking at building out a greater position in Hut and Hive, as well as DMG blockchain. And having the zero commission fees really goes a long way because it's just that much more you're able to invest. So every few days, I throw a little bit more in, and we'll see how long this accumulation phase actually lasts for us before we really start to run again. So as always, my advice is unchanged. There's nothing you need to do. If you're already invested, then you're invested. If you were trading it and it went the wrong way for you, well, sorry, this is what happens, but this is the way it works. You don't get to decide the direction it goes in. But if you're willing to let your money do the work for you, you can take all of that time and energy spent trading and put it to some productive use. Build your empire. And if you're not sure how to do that, then maybe consider joining Patreon. And you'll be able to discuss with other members, and who knows what kind of ideas you might gain. As I mentioned, Discord will be available to all tiers, because I really think that's where the greatest value is. And the more people that could be a part of that community, the better off it's going to be for everybody else. But if you do feel like supporting the channel any further, it will not go unnoticed, and it is greatly appreciated. It will go a very long way to help me expand on this channel, bring even better content, and help me focus on growing this community. That's all for this one. Now let's get back to empire building.